I come from the future, and I'm telling you that this current generation of Nintendo, Microsoft, Sony hardware dominance that we've been used to for so long is the last generation that this is going to be. It's now been over 4 years since the PS5 and the Xbox Series XS launched, and I still feel like the current generation has barely got started. And I feel that way because still most games seem to be available on the previous generation, and also because the console exclusive is pretty much going extinct. It all just sort of adds up to me feeling like the incumbents feel very vulnerable and in a position of weakness, which is when a competitor could rise and take control. So first I'll just say, I'm going to put Nintendo to the side for a second. Nintendo is at the end of their redemption arc. The Switch 1 was amazing. It outsold the PS2, which is like crazy to think about. And at this point, Nintendo's just biding their time ahead of the Switch 2. Say what you want about Nintendo, but they've at least understood for a very long time that innovation means a new way to play, and it doesn't just mean increased graphical fidelity. Sometimes Nintendo totally loses the plot themselves, but they're the ones who have consistently evolved how we play and interact with our games. Even if the Switch 2 kills it, there's clearly a lot of room in the market. Microsoft is sort of playing themselves out of the console market entirely, and they're kind of like turning into a SEGA situation, but like in a much slower motion. SEGA was like blown out of the water all at once when the PS2 and Xbox came out, whereas the Xbox isn't going away as quickly, but Microsoft's clearly retreating from the market to some extent, and their strategy is to kind of buy up as many game studios as they can and just put all their eggs in the Game Pass basket. Time will tell if that works or not, but it seems to be the direction they're headed. Sony, on the other hand, is surviving. I wouldn't necessarily say they're thriving. I'd say they're somewhere in between doing just okay or totally retooling from some of the stinkers and whiffs that have come out in 2024. I think that Sony's in the position they're in because their general path of just increasing graphic fidelity is a little bit blowing up in their face now, and I just don't really know what they're doing unique anymore. Their VR is their Portal is but their main problem is that not all, but the vast majority of their exclusives aren't really exclusive anymore, and if you wait a few months you can get them on Steam. Yes, there are the Astrobots and Bloodborns of the world, but if you go back to like the PS2, buying games for the PS2 was a totally different experience than what you can get on a PC, and that's just mostly not the case anymore. Almost every single one of Sony's flagship titles now is on Steam as long as you just wait a few months. So what could be coming? I think the next gen will truly start when we get either a new way to play or a new delivery mechanism. I think the two most obvious things in the short term would either be VR or cloud gaming, the ability to just run games on any device generally. But I also think there could be some longer term wildcards like biometrics and AI, which I'll get to in a second. Who's going to be doing this? My hunch are that Nvidia or Valve are going to come out with something and become a true force in the market. I'm leaning more towards Valve because they have the true gaming hardware software experience, but Nvidia has the chips, and they did dabble with the Nvidia Shield, so I wouldn't be too surprised if they came out with something. No matter what it is, it's always been all about the games, and that's why I think Valve sort of has the leg up, because they have the entire Steam library on their side. It's easy to forget the Google Stadia. I bet you they spent way more time making that than it was actually available for. But if Google had actually solved cloud gaming, that would have been huge. There were like a bunch of problems that made the Stadia kind of an issue out of the gate, but I think their biggest problem was their pricing model, and just the fact that they really had a lackluster game library. There wasn't much of a reason to own one, and even less of a reason for anybody to migrate off what they were already playing. Valve, on the other hand, has Steam, they understand VR, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if they complemented the Steam Deck with some kind of set-top box or some way to create a multi-device ecosystem. Something that would make sense to own standalone and just straight steal market share from Sony, but also something that unlocks increased functionality if you also have the Steam Deck or even a Valve Index. Now, if anybody can nail cloud gaming, that'll help them run away with the next generation, and I think Nvidia could be poised to do that. I think part of the reason why we're hitting this graphics bottleneck is from rendering things on device. I think if games could finally be rendered off device, think in one of Nvidia's like huge server farms, and sent to your house over a decent connection, that would actually solve the graphics bottleneck problem, because they have like supercomputers sending you your games. Besides Valve and Nvidia, the rest of big tech could make a play as well. There's Amazon. They must have bought Twitch for a reason, and they also are building out their Amazon Luna service to try to probably make a play for cloud gaming. It's just so hard for me to imagine Amazon winning anything hardware-wise that I don't really think they're likely to go and do anything on their own, and it would be more like they partner with somebody to bring cloud gaming out to the masses. Facebook is obviously dabbling in VR and the metaverse, but similar to Amazon, I don't really believe in their ability to do hardware right. And more importantly, I think they lack the strategic, creative focus or vision to really make a splash in the market. Google Stadia proved that it takes more than having a huge company backing you with unlimited money to break into the console market. Yes, money has a lot to do with it, and it's kind of a prerequisite, but you're not really going to make a lasting impression unless you bring something unique to the table. And I don't really know if Facebook has it within themselves to bring something unique. I see Facebook as more of a company that buys stuff, Instagram, Oculus, than a company that thinks things up and goes and executes. Now, a company that does think things up and goes and execute on them is Apple. Even though the Apple Vision Pro isn't doing much right now, I do think AR has a lot of interesting possibilities, and they have the whole Apple App Store and Apple Arcade, so they clearly know how to make platforms with appealing services, and they really just need the game library. I feel like there's nothing to play on it right now. Apple is a company that has great creative vision, knows how to build hardware, and understands marketing. I think they're just missing the games. Google, I think the whole Stadia project scared them off for a while, but who knows. Last but not least, there's also like the Asus, Lenovo, and Logitechs of the world who are making alternative Steam Decks. Again, I don't really see them doing anything on their own, but they are viable companies, and you never know. Whether it's Nvidia, Valve, Apple, or some fourth company that takes us by surprise, I think the company that really wins the next generation is whoever has the games and who does something unique. Because if they don't, everything's just going to get sucked into the PC. As easy as Steam has made it, I know there's a sizable amount of people who don't want to mess around with a PC and just want to turn on their couch and flip on a purpose-made box. But these things are expensive now, and I think the value proposition is going to keep eroding, which opens up the door for someone who can solve either VR or cloud gaming. In the future, think like probably multiple years from now, I think AI is going to make what we know as procedural generation today look like total child's play. I think someday some developer is going to have the chip that they need and figure out how to make an experience that's totally all you. You just type in what kind of world you want it to be in and what kind of music you want to hear, and it's going to build a game around that. And I don't know how long that's going to be, but obviously that'll be huge, and I do believe that's coming. Also, at some point, there's going to probably be some kind of like biometric and interface, whether that's like a Neuralink thing or just with your fingers or eyes, some kind of tracking that takes your body movements into account, which I know is something Nintendo's filed patents on in the past, but never really rolled out to market. Anyway, I just think the Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo triopoly that we've been living in and so used to for so long, its days are actually numbered. But what do you think? Do you think there's ever going to be another Xbox? Are you going to buy the PlayStation 6? Do you think Sony can continue on the path that they're on, or that a company like Nvidia or Valve is going to sneak up from behind them and push them out of the market? All I know is I'm really excited. I really, really, really want a Switch 2, and I'm sure I'm going to enjoy it, but it's not everything. A little more innovation in the console market, I think, would go a long way. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon.